Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome to the County Road Commission. This will be the last meeting of the year, at least last scheduled meeting of the year. We have something that is pressing, and that'll bring us to our item number 2. Roll call, please.
Lehman.
Here.
Underwood.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Haslam.
Here.
Gilman.
Here. We are all present and accounted for. The approval of the agenda. It's pretty much as it was per the second revision delivered on Friday. One of those days. Yeah, I'll entertain a motion for approval, or if there's anything anybody would like to change.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support. And Carl. All right, is anybody going to have a conflict of interest with any of the items on the agenda? Seeing none. You approve the agenda? Oh, I'm sorry. Motion. Right, yeah. All those to approve the agenda, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same. Okay, so we have an agenda. Thank you for the friendly reminder. I'm just burning through this thing. We got a lot of stuff to do. Any conflict of interest with any of the items on the agenda? Seeing none, that moves us to a first public comment. Is there anyone who's going to want to make a public comment now, or would you like to wait till the budget hearing, or would you like to?
Oh, budget hearing, sorry.
Okay, that's what I kind of read that one. So nobody else jumping up for public comment. That brings us to our first action item, item A, the public hearing on the 2020 budget. Let me do the official.
It should say 2023.
2022, 2023. Yeah, it is 2023 budget. Thank you. I'll be writing checks with 2022 for the next 3 months. So
Doesn't matter.
all righty. The hearing's called to order. This for the budget of 2023 for the Grand Traverse County Road Commission. Gavel, all that, and let's see. I guess the hearing is open. If anybody has any commentary they'd like to make on the budget.
Hello, Dan Olson, speaking on behalf of myself, 14795 Mallard Drive. I apologize for not being able to open up the document I sent to you. I can put it in a different format. My intention was not to read the entire document to you, but I'll just kind of hit the highlights as it relates to the budget. And just kind of go through it a little bit in succession. I kind of feel like the starting point for the budget is it has to be looked at from the asset management plan. And this year's asset management plan has a shift of reducing the normal $10,750,000 down to a $7.5 million expenditure for the next 3 years. And I think it's kind of maybe front loaded this upcoming year, but in following year, I think it's projected to even out to that based on what I've kind of understood from the asset management plan. That represents a 30% reduction in the total road spending that you're going to be doing on road improvement projects. Your asset management plan also highlighted what you're going to do with local roads and increasing what you're going to spend on local roads from $500,000 each year to $1 million. But actually, after I attended the meeting where you discussed the asset management plan a little bit further, I learned that that's actually a subset of the $7.5 million. So of that $7.5 million, you're going to shift $1 million averaged over 3 years each year to the local budget. So it still is kind of a 30% reduction. That 30% reduction is roughly 75% of the road millage that the county road millage contributes towards the road commission. Kind of outlined in my document, there's 2 problems with this approach. The first is that the asset management plan clearly shows that this course of action is not going to move the road commission any closer to the goal of improving local roads. and I kind of set this out, but overall, 50% of local roads, or overall, 50% of paved roads have a PACER rating of poor. Overall, 60% of all local roads, which includes unpaved, are poor. And so you kind of get into the weeds of the chart that's in the back of the appendix of that document. But in order to kind of try to solve that problem, the asset management plan kind of categorizes out about 584 miles of road to say we're not going to even address those. Those are residential roads, or those are dirt roads. We're going to focus on the major local roads, which is 180 miles. Of those major local roads, 47% of those major local roads have a PACER rating of poor. And if you look at the document that Joe Slonecki prepared from Wade Trim, the technical data for the projection for addressing the local major roads is actually going to get worse over the next 3 years. In 2023, it's going to go up to 62% as being poor. 2024, it's going to go up to 65%. By 2025, that document projects 68% of these major local roads will be rated poor. So while you make a small incremental difference in some roads by making them in good condition, overall, even your major local roads are going to suffer, and you're not going to make. You're just getting further away from the goal. The other point I made in this letter is the second problem with this approach is it sends the wrong message to the people in the county who want to see their roads fixed. It sends a message that if you can pull 30% out towards road spending to other things, you don't really need the road millage. And I think that's wrong. I think that you do need the road millage. There is a funding gap. I think everybody recognizes that. So I feel like this is kind of going in the wrong direction. As it relates to the budget, I'm trying to figure out kind of where is this $3,250,000 getting shifted to. One of the reasons for shifting this in the asset management plan is that there's other supportive things that go towards the roads that need to be emphasized, like traffic signals and things like that. But actually, this budget shows less money going to traffic signals than in previous years.
Right, Dan, I'm gonna because we're gonna be discussing this. I kind of took it out of order a little bit, just so that you could have your say as well. And this is, as far as written correspondence, this is going to be entered into the budget correspondence. Okay, I want to address something before I have the staff go over the budget with us, just so that I see some things in your letter that I agree with. Okay, there are some things that I agree with. In some ways, though, there are some things that I think are being missed. We're talking past each other or something. Because if you take a look at the 2021 budget, we have almost 19 million in total construction, preservation, and maintenance. In 2022, we had almost 24 million in total construction, preservation, and maintenance. And we're not 3 million less in 2023. We're literally $800,000 off for our 2023 budget. So I mean, we're still putting the money in to the construction, preservation, and maintenance. It's still there. It's still doing the work on the roads. What you might see a little bit of difference is, because we've had to make some shifts, is the way in which we're managing some of our, and I'm going to have management speak to this, is some of the ways that we're managing the equipment, which is kind of one of your other objections, but it's something I think that, even though, yes, it seems like we may be, in your words, boxed in, we have to do some practical planning in terms of equipment, simply because of the nature of what's happened in the last 3 years. So, but I want to move to the, if I could, I want to move to the management part of it, unless you have something that you really feel like it has to be said first.
Well, for transparency, and I know you guys try to be transparent, and it's hard because, you know, where it's the level of answering everybody's questions, but the amended budget, when you're columnizing these, the final 2021 budget is what stuff you actually did. The amended budget for 2022 is it also includes some of those carryover projects, the chip sealing that never got done. So that it's kind of hard to decipher how much of that stuff didn't really get done in the amended budget. And then also in years past, the equipment has been charged between the primary road fund and the local road fund. They kind of get split. Sometimes more goes to one or the other. So it's difficult when especially when you folks are approving equipment purchases, it's not clear like what line item is this going under for purposes of, is it counting towards local road improvement or is it not? I get there's got to be some kind of accounting function of what's the equipment for, like ditching. Well, you're going to do most of your ditching on local roads. You're going to charge it to that fund, but it can get lost in the weeds. And so, and then it's also hard to decipher, at the global level, what are pass-through projects that are just money that's passing through versus stuff that's really part of your MTF budget. That's kind of that separate pot of money. So it's hard to decipher that. But I think I wanted to address the philosophical point of view of not reducing that funding and whether it's this year or upcoming years.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Dan. And unless anybody else has anything to ask Dan or talk to Dan about, or
I don't have any.
because we're going to come back to the.
Yeah, I think I'm going to raise that when we're.
All right, thanks. I really appreciate the input. And then I think at this point, you're the management in the room to talk about it.
Right. So there are several things here, and I want to try and get this through so that everybody here can understand it, as well as clarify how governmental accounting works. Because we don't charge, when we charge a piece of equipment out, for example, and we buy it, we are buying it out of our MTF revenues. But as projects are being done, that project charges back to pay for that vehicle over the cost of its lifetime, so that by the end of its lifetime, all these charges that have been associated with every project equal or better the cost of a new piece of equipment. So those charges that occur have built up into our reserve to be able to purchase a replacement piece of equipment. And then that gets charged out through this. So you'll see that as we go through, and I have this up here and it's also back behind you there, if you want to look at it that way. So if we want to go through these line items, taxes is what is the millage. So that's off the property tax. That's our expected outcome here that we've had. And the proposed from all of the assessors throughout the county are that we are expecting to have about $4,700,000 this year in millage funds. Licenses and permits, that's what we do for driveway approaches and other right-of-way permits. It's for $150,000. Federal sources change all the time. And that just depends on what we're awarded by the federal government in their Michigan Rural Task Force or with our small urban task force. We get monies from the feds. We have a match that we have to implement, and then we accomplish projects. The state maintenance or the Michigan Transportation Fund, that is all of our main source of revenue. And that goes for pretty much everything we do here above and beyond these projects. I mean, it's everything from plowing to ditching to mowing, you name it, it comes out of that fund. The taxes only pay, that millage is not a separate item that only goes to pay for resurfacing or upkeep or maintenance of existing roads. We can't increase the capacity. We can't spend it on a bridge. We can't spend it on a signal. It has to be spent on the surface of the road. So everything else comes out of that Michigan Transportation Fund. The state maintenance is it's a wash. It's what we get from the state to maintain theirs. So however much we spend, they reimburse us plus our administrative overhead. The other state sources are not going to be included this year. That was a separate issue that came up for a one-time thing, and we had it closed out. Plus we had some additional funds that came in through some economic development to go with that. This year, we are expecting to only have the forestry funds. That 49,668 is a set amount we get every year for forestry operations that occur in Grand Traverse County. Contributions from local units go in to pay off bonds for projects that we're doing for different townships, as well as some cost share monies that they come in. Right now, we only have the one big project, and they are anticipating to have $114,000 to pay the year one of that bond. And then it's also another bond that they have outstanding to get to that 114. Charges for services are things we do for others, and interest is what we accumulate from our fund balance. The other down below is just some miscellaneous things that come in at different times in the year for different reasons. They typically run in that low 200,000. It's just we've been fortunate to have some additional income come in through some of the ARPA funds over the last 2 years, as well as
In that 7.9 million, is some of that some of that carryover? Is it just?
That 7.9 is what we said that we were going to probably bond for Kingsley.
Okay, so
we've already spent
got it.
some money on Kingsley, but in addition to that, we are bonding most likely 7.9 million to complete it, assuming we are putting a car wash on it.
Okay.
It might be a little bit more depending on how things shake out, but that's expected to pay for the new facility at Kingsley. You can keep scrolling down, Rachel. So our expenditures, and this is where it comes in and where these things are broken down. Our report is different than the asset management report. The asset management report is a report intended to account for MTF revenues. So when we used to report in asset management, we used to report MTF plus millage. They want MTF.
Period.
They don't care about the millage because that's not a guaranteed source of revenue. So above and beyond that amount that we have at that 7 million, we've got another 4 million that we have in the millage that's going back in. So when you look at the actual construction projects for this coming year, we expect to spend 14 million. And out of that 15 that's currently in the amended budget, we will have a change order, which will carry forward about 6.5 million into this coming year for projects that we could not get a contractor in to complete. Routine maintenance is the same situation. We have several of them that are going to be carried over, but it is 4,700,000, and that is for just normal, smaller projects, smaller issues that need to come into effect, whether it be ditching, whether it be guardrail, whether it be, some spot repairs. But that's the typical thing. And then, of course, you see we've got $3.5 million that we spend a year on our winter maintenance.
The construction projects, the 14,172,000, is that amount both MTF and millage?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't, in our budget, we don't separate. For the Asset Management Council, we have to separate. And we have to have it set up to cover that MTF revenue separately. So when you look at the traffic services, for many, many cycles here, we've been going through upgrading to the Scoot system. So the difference in the reduction here is the fact that we don't have much left to do. There's still some programming. It's still a lot, yes. It is still a lot. But we're not, right. But we are at this point going to use that, and that will finish out the Hammond corridor, and then we will be done with the Scoot implementation. So this will be the last huge year. It's still going to be, 300,000 to 500,000, depending on the year, for poles that need to be rebuilt, signals. And then our equipment charges, that is based on what we actually charge out per year, or what it costs us, and then the equipment rental charges that we charge to every single person who's driving a vehicle. The vehicle gets charged a certain amount of money, and then we have gains and losses based on the sale values. So we actually came out after all was said and done with what we purchased and what we had to have for for the charge outs, we ended up coming ahead because the vehicles sold for more than we anticipated. Fringe is another thing. It gets 100% redistributed against all of the regular expenditures we do. Overhead is basically the building, the equipment here at the building, as well as some of the other issues that we have that need to be taken care of. Capital outlay is where we start talking about buildings, we start talking about major pieces of equipment, and it's as high as it is because of that bond for the Kingsley
Kingsley
facility.
facility, right?
Right. And then when you get into the breakdown below, it talks about we have to report the administration because we're only allowed to have a certain percentage of the total MTF be dedicated into administration. The state maintenance contract has to be reported separately, as well as the other inventory type items that we have there. And then our bonds and notes. That 891 covers the last of the payments that we will be making for Airport Road when we took the bond out for that. So our fund balance will go back down. It's mainly high because we have a hard time getting contractors in, but we anticipate if we can get contractors in that we will be right where the board has asked us to be. And that is, they asked us to be somewhere between $3.5 and $3.75 million. We're going to be a little bit above that if everything comes to fruition out of this year. Next page. When you break down revenues, it becomes a little more fine tooth here. You can start seeing, you know, that's the countywide millage it talks about. Just keep scrolling for a bit here. There's some of your other things, your surface transportation. Oh, a little bit too far, sorry. The surface transportation budget, that is urban and other federal funds. And then you've got your, the 16,000 that we have is for a safety analysis, a roadside safety analysis. And then we have some other federal funds coming in. Then we get $10,000 a year because we have an engineer on staff. We get paid above and beyond the normal MTF funds. We get $310,000 this year, and that is for our road winter maintenance. We get that because we are in a high snow area. People down south get nothing.
Is that 310,000 for snow removal? Is that limited to certain?
It's a set percentage of Act 51 that gets distributed to all the counties that fall into a high snow density region. So the higher you go, the more you get, but it is set at the state level, and then we get our percentage of that entire set aside amount based on which county we are.
But are we limited to where we can
No,
spend?
it's
these
just,
funds?
because we've already spent it on snow, but it's just a reimbursement for snow is all it is. So we can spend it anywhere we want. The 87,000 for mileage transfer, that's for out in Interlochen when we took over 137. Urban road is the premium we get for the number of miles in the urban area. As far as up north, we're about it for people with an urban area. So that $1.6 million comes from that. And then the standard Act 51 allocation is $12,658,000. Yes. So, all right. The next thing, we don't have any bridges right now. Forest roads, that's that standard statutorily dedicated $49,668 based on the amount of forested lands or forestable lands that we have within the county. And then there's the township bond. Okay. Keep going. The revenue to the expenditure. Oh, we saw a few more revenues. There's the state maintenance contract that all cancels out because that's expended on them.
Whereas the snow removal is, they
They pay us straight
and
out.
we could get lucky or unlucky based on.
Well, they'll pay us for however many hours we work on their roads,
Okay.
even for snow. Salt, they pay also, but we don't get, we don't have the luxury of running out of their salt. So if we're gonna run out of salt, they have first go at our salt.
Got it.
So that's one of the issues that we're working on in the next maintenance agreement with them.
So the trunk line maintenance, that actually includes money separately for snow removal on trunk line.
For just, yeah, so for 37, 31, 72, all of those that are within the county that are state owned, so even 113 and 186.
Right.
So damage claims, those are for accident recoveries. And then interest again is the 100,000, the gain that we had. And so we have a total revenue, including that bond, of 7.9 million, of a total revenue this year of 31 million. And we are expecting to spend 36, dropping us by 5,357,000 in the fund. So the next one we have is expenditures, also broken down similarly. We have primary road construction. Stop it there, please. That covers our primary road construction, and these are capacity improvements. So these are where we're adding a lane. These are where
New
we're
lanes, new roads.
doing additional
yeah.
features to make it a better capacity road for what we need. Then we have our heavy maintenance, which this year is going to come in at 11 million. When you carry forward the additional money, it's probably going to be the biggest construction season Grand Traverse County has ever seen. Heavy maintenance, and then local road heavy maintenance. And that's where we're starting to get into the roads that fall into our township cost sharing, where we absorbed. Historically, we've been responsible for primaries. These are that 120 miles or so of through locals that we've decided we're going to start taking on. And so you've got some money going into those starting this year.
Is that part of the millage monies that are used towards that?
Some of it will be millage, some of it will be MTF.
Okay.
Okay, and we have some money that was thrown in previously for a couple of locals that we had taken care of under other township sharing agreements. And also we had one that is technically a local road, but it is federally fundable. So we were able to extend some money onto that. So primary road maintenance, this is the routine maintenance. This is more of the skip patching. This is more of the localized approaches. And it's also the ditching and everything else. And then we're expecting to spend 4.7 million on that. Winter maintenance, again, 3.5 million. Traffic services, slightly lower. State maintenance. Okay, we don't have anything anymore with the wetland bank right now, but they are still looking at the potential for having additional, but that again is a pass-through. If that comes through, we take care of it, we pay them, then they reimburse us, including administrative costs for it. So again, we break these down for where we have expenditures, and that 99.99 is the overhead that we gain by doing $1 million plus worth of work for the state. They pay us $100,000 to take care of the overhead for it. Discounts are the expenses direct, are direct to a vehicle, indirect are general facility needs for the garage, and then operating is your gas, your oil, that type of expenditure. So we spend this year, we're expecting to spend $650,000 on fuel. And the fringe again gets balanced out. And if you keep going down, the overhead is basically distributed expenses to all of us. Engineers are separate recorded because they get charged to very specific projects. Because if a federal aid project comes to us, we can distribute the engineers that worked on it. We can distribute their overhead back to that federal funds and be part of our matching funds for those. Building, we've got the 7.9 plus we've got the contingencies of in case something goes wrong and a couple of little repairs that need to be done here. Equipment, 3.3 million and other 567. So, and we'll get into those as we move down into the next section. Going down. So when we get down here, this is our capital outlay. And so you have your first is your road equipment for 3,323,642. Land we're not spending any more money on, but you have your contingency repairs for Kingsley. We've already spent some money on Kingsley, so it's at 7.5 right now that we're anticipating. That will go up if we add the car wash. We haven't 100% decided on that. We said we could do with that as we get some more numbers and more information from it. Fuel tank upgrades, those are for here. Security upgrades, which we still have a lot of discussion, but we've got 2 buildings that need to have some sort of security put in them. Man door replacements, we're replacing the steel doors with fiberglass, and other miscellaneous building improvements that need to be done here, including replacing some doors and some handles. Then we have the shop equipment. The generators that we're listing at 30,000, that's to buy generators for our traffic signals, so that if a power outage occurs, we can hook them up to the traffic signals and keep them going instead of having a all-way dark signal. The vehicle hoist for 120,000, that's a secondary hoist that we'll have that can also lift a fully loaded truck, which is incredibly heavy. Engineering equipment, we've got a whole bunch of little things. There's some Scoot information software that needs to be bought and some hardware. Traffic counters, we need to replace all of our traffic counters. They've reached the end of their lifespan, and we've got a couple of engineering computers. And office equipment is just a bunch of miscellaneous things that are all listed there. And if you have any questions about it, I can answer it. But our total capital outlay, including the new Kingsley building, is expected at $11,692,000.
All right, any questions here further, or I mean?
So just so I'm clear, the millage monies are used for resurfacing, upkeep, or maintenance of existing roads, limit of all roads.
It can be spent on where we determine the need is.
And then what, did I understand you correctly at the beginning where you were talking about equipment, that the cost of those equipment usage is charged to the contracts?
To any project. So when Jay goes out to ditch, all the vehicles that go out to do a ditching, they all have an hourly rate. The state has a standard, what's called the C rate. And we charge out per hour that it's on site for every single piece of equipment, no matter where they are. So if they're on local ditching, it gets charged to local ditching. If they're on local pothole patching, it gets charged to local pothole. If it's major or primary potholes, it's charged to primary
So
potholes.
we're recouping the cost.
Yeah, so effectively, you buy the equipment. Once you own the equipment, then you're building that fund back up to replace that equipment. And sometimes we keep a piece of equipment longer than the charge out adds up, and it means that we have more in the fund set aside to buy that piece of equipment. Or sometimes we don't, and we have a problem.
Sometimes it's counterproductive.
Yeah, sometimes, we just like, for example, we had one pickup truck that is currently worth 16,000 that hit a deer, and it's 14,000 to repair, so we're not gonna repair it. So there's sometimes you lose, sometimes you gain, but overall it tends to hold its balance. And we track that on a separate spreadsheet to see which vehicles and where they sit as far as they're recouping their portion of what they have in the motor vehicle pool.
Thanks.
Else, okay. I just had a real quick question. What in our expenditures for construction, preservation and maintenance, just to kind of answer a question. What's the difference between our carryover from 21-22 to 22-23? I mean, so I know we're always going to have carryover. We have
Yes.
projects
So-
we haven't finished.
So 2 years ago, we carried forward about $2.25 million.
Okay.
This year, we're carrying forward $6.5 million,
Okay.
about, give or take. It depends, because we have to rebid some of it too, because we didn't, that contractor for all the chip seal flaked out on us. So we're guessing somewhere in that $6.5 million range. of carryover.
So to address the concern, and so in 2022, our amended budget shows us with 23,969. So yeah, 23,969,000. So in the 2023 budget, we have 23,151. So the 23,969 included $2+ million in carryover, but the 23 includes
The 23 does not include any carryover.
Okay, that's not, so that's
That has
proposed.
none of that carryover can be done until the year closes.
So if, let's,
So-
assuming it all works, and then in our amended budget, it could potentially show then, 29 million.
It will most likely go up to 29 and change.
That's
So,
very,
because this year is actually probably gonna come in at 17 million
okay,
because of that transfer out of what we're carrying forward. So
Okay.
the actual expenditure this year was probably closer to 17 million.
Got it.
But now, next year, instead of 23 million, assuming we get all these contractors in, we'll be closer to 29 million in constructed projects.
okay,
And that won't happen until February, when we can do that transfer. After we close the year end,
okay,
get all the reports done,
and then we'll amend the
then we'll
budget,
amend the budget.
okay,
And when we amend the budget, it'll take all those carryovers and slide them in, and you'll have another revised, you'll have our first amendment done in a revised budget, which will show, like I said,
All right.
29. It's gonna be a busy.
that
busy summer.
answers a lot to me. Anybody else right now? We address some of what your questions are?
I appreciate you asking. Can I ask one question? So on when you're looking at the very top view of the budget and you're looking at construction projects, which is, 14 million for this upcoming year. Like, not to put Bill's up on the spot, I'm not asking him, but like for the NEPA phase study for that consulting, that's considered a construction project?
That is recorded as a pre-construction portion, which is not reported as construction expenditure until it's complete. So if it goes into the next year, it would not be, it would be considered administration, which would then be charged out later in the next year when it's complete.
Okay.
And that's just, unfortunately, that's just kind of the way governmental funding and the way they ask us to report things is.
But on the breakdown though, that, so the administration, where does that projected for what you think you're gonna spend next year? Where is that reflected in the breakdown?
It's reflected in this construction, but that's assuming that we are going to complete it and everything else goes. But it doesn't necessarily mean that's where it will be charged throughout the year. So when we eventually get to that point and we're getting closer and we know, yes, this is where we'll be, there will be some there. And that will be part of the overall construction of the bridge when it takes effect. So as we start getting federal funds and we start accumulating monies for different things, then, there'll be a whole lot of changes.
Right,
in this
and the carryover, and if you're looking for differences, the carryover is shown, for example, in the 2022 budget is 15 million. And the carryover is not shown in the 14 million that's for the 2023 budget.
Right.
Okay, I mean, am I
Yeah,
correct? Okay.
correct, yeah, so,
Okay, all right,
so like the year previous, the reason why we're at 11 million, for one,
Yep.
we were heavy into COVID.
great.
But 2 million of that got transferred over to the next year, and now 6.5 million will be transferred to the next. And if you want to see details, Dan, feel free to come in. I can go through line item by line item, but it'll take a long time.
Okay, let's move on. Does anybody else have anything else before we close the hearing? I'd like to close the hearing and I guess.
Typically, we would hold off to go to action items, but if you want to move
Well,
E.
yeah, I mean, it's funny because B is the discussion of the draft budget, and I mean, we can hold off till the end of the appointments, I guess. We'll do that. You guys can let it soak in for a little bit. So the hearing is closed and we will move on to our next item, which is, Dan, you're up for the Mission Hills homeowners. Bill's going, darn it, I didn't get in quick enough to get in that first slot there.
Right. I enjoyed the
First one.
Yeah, right. I'm pretty sure he's spending the night anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you guys got a lot going on tonight. I missed last week or last month. I apologize. I want to address a couple of things. I think from the working group, we came up with the memo. The memo had 4 action items. One, which was allow our engineering department to partially stabilize the closed section of the shoreline to keep the options open to fully repair the road as noted above. I just would ask that that still be considered. I feel like it's stalled a little bit and this Eagle grant proposal, which may or may not require complete relocation of the road or just a shifting. I think Ames Smith recommended it be shifted and dropped to a lower elevation. I don't know how that's going to play out, but the problem is there's some things that need to occur first if you're going to do anything in that stretch, which is to increase the safety rating. And the two things that GEI recommended were get rid of the surface water, and you can do some work at the toe so that you don't have a risk of more collapses. And we've asked for the ditching to occur there. The response is it's not safe to go even in there to do the ditching. So now it becomes a chicken and the egg. Like if we don't do something, nothing's ever going to be able to occur in that corridor. And at the working group meeting, I asked for the documents to be brought, and so we could look at what was done to the north outside the barricaded area, which is where 240 feet of shoreline work was done, and you put a rock revetment in there. And I mean, that was met with some resistance, not applicable, but as I think Commissioner Lehman pointed out, if we're just comparing apples to apples for as far as a rock revetment, it actually is comparable. And that project came out that you guys did, came out to about $500 per linear foot for the 10-foot rock revetment. So I again asked that be considered, that staff be directed to work towards what kind of shoreline work could be done. I went down there recently. I think it would be helpful to have your staff, you guys have a drone, to take some drone footage for you guys and to kind of see the conditions that exist now. If they get out there before snow falls again, or when there's a break in the snow, you can kind of see where the right of way is. There's plenty of room in the right of way. The right of way is completely exposed. It's not in the water anymore. When this first happened, water was right up into the right of way. The issue was, can Eagle even permit us to backfill in the Lake Michigan? That's not even an issue anymore. The work that the state did further down on Center Road, where there was a curve there and there was an erosion issue, and they came in and they put a rock revetment up. They did all that work right inside the right of way. They stayed within the right of way. It was just a highly vertical rock wall. So if you folks chose, hey, we're just going to stay in the right of way, but we're still going to build up and reinforce that toe so that there can't be continued damage there, you could do that inside the right of way. If your engineers say, hey, it is actually cheaper if we get permission from that last remaining landowner to go outside the right of way and use some of that property to make an easier slope up there, and it may be cheaper and more efficient to do it that way, you can do that. And I think there was a comment made about not being able to work outside the right of way, but you can. You just got to get permission of the landowners, and that's what the road commission did to the north when it did that 240 feet. The entire rock revetment is completely outside the road right of way. And it may have made sense to do that so that you could get a nice slope up to the road. I think you could do the same thing inside the closed section. And we still have those two scarfs there. And you've got a lot of shoreline now between the right of way and the water. So you have a lot of options right now. And I just really think that this is the opportunity to look at what those options are before they become foreclosed with higher water, a year or two out from here. And then we're back to the environmental hazards of, can we go back closer to the water, or what does that entail? So again, I ask that stay on your radar, that you folks kind of really take a look at that. And, I just offer that for your consideration. Thanks.
All right, that brings us to Ron. Long Lake Township. What's up?
So, one of the things we talked about was having more communication from the road commission to the townships. And I was really looking forward to having you guys come out and come to our board meetings. And then, we're going to set up in January, get moved. And I think the biggest thing that, we're always the first one to get called if someone's got problems with the roads. And I really think that if you keep us informed on what's happening with different roads, we talk about the local roads that are going to be taken over, like Barney and Fisher Road and Cunningham, and we're going to be local through roads, but no one knows when they're going to be done. But if we know when you come and communicate with us, then we can help communicate and carry that message. So let us help you do that. And I think a lot of times people think the road commission is unattainable. They call here and they get told, call the township. And we're happy to help you out. Just got to keep us informed of what's on. So I'm looking forward. I'm glad that we got put back on the January meeting. And so I want to thank you for that. So I think it's important to do those and keep the communication and really tell us what's going on so we can help you. I mean, I think that's what we were there to have and do. The other thing I want to talk about is roads in our township. And we've talked a little bit about it in the past meetings, and let's talk about capacity. You know, Long Lake Township in 2017 had 9,023 people. In 2022, we've got approximately 10,300 people. We went from residential housing in 2017 from 4,200 to 4,555 homes in 2022. We're expected to add housing of 401 that are approved currently. 300 are going to dump on a Gray Road and Cedar Run Road. And, you know, it's just house. How many people are going to live in the house? And 100 will impact North Long Lake Road. And that doesn't include the people that drive through our township from Benzie to get to town. Because a lot of people come through Long Lake Township, whether they're coming from Interlochen, Benzie, you know, all those roads, they all come right down their roads. We have a high school there, and they're all coming in there. And I know you guys know this, so I'm probably preaching to the choir, but we got to do something. And, you know, we talk about, you know, North Long Lake Road, we did our RSA back, we started it in 21 and we finished it in March. And things have just kind of died. We just kept on asking for a plan. 2 months ago, I attended a meeting. I think I get that plan. Well, I have to ask for the plan, and I struggle with it that we have to ask for it. Not that you're proactive saying, and I know everybody's busy. I'm busy too. I run a business and I run a township. And so, but things can get done. And I don't know where all that falls, but I just got the response on December 14th, and I'm assuming because I asked to be here in front of you that I got the response. And I kind of struggle with that. But what I also struggle with is that for the North Long Straight Road area, you know, we talk about local location, we have 15 crashes from 2015 to 2020. But what about 21, 22? And I know we haven't got all those. Let me finish a little bit. And so I'm struggling that we have this road that's got activity. And I go back and we talk about safety. We talk about safety with our fire station. We talk about doing things. But now in front of our fire station, that's actually become a passing lane. I've watched it 3 times where they've passed through that area. So we'll wait and see what happens there someday. We go back to safety. So my question is that how do we prevent something and be proactive? Go ahead. You want to say
Well,
something?
I want to chime in on the straight road thing. And you actually mentioned the fire. We talked about what was going to happen with that becoming a passing lane, essentially. It kind of became that. And we talked about that when we were planning it. And we did everything we could to try to make it happen for you. On the straight road issue, I mean, you've been a township supervisor now for a couple of years, okay? When all of that development is happening around that corner, you know, I mean, you weren't the supervisor at the time. I think it's important that, you know, you have planners, you have people who are looking forward to the growth that you talked about.
Mhm.
And, you know, information can go multiple ways, you know. So I mean, you know, our planners, our engineers need to know before the next hardware store goes up in a corner of a road in Long Lake Township, hey, we're going to have a hardware store here, or we're going to have commercial activity here in the next couple of years. What do we need to do to start, as you say, being proactive about how we plan those corners? What is the township going to have to endure as far as expense? Because that was something that we missed on the fire, you know, at the fire department, right? On a couple of levels, even outside of the road commission. So I think information both ways, absolutely. And we are being, we're going to try to address the communications issues by getting out and doing the road show thing a little more often now too.
And I think that's important. And I think I think a lot of it is that how do we communicate back and forth? Because, you know, part of our master plan that we're going through right now includes the county's master plan.
Yeah.
And what is their plan for that road? But I think a lot of it is that this area has been our local government, our local business area for a long time. Back in 2000 or 1999, 1998, somewhere. So it's been a problem for a long time.
But the growth was pretty explosive in the last few years. I mean,
Right. And so that's what I'm saying is that I look at it this way. It's like we go through all these studies and it's like, what's it take to put a passing lane or a road flare through that area of East Long and so on? What? And I think that's the struggle is that when does something happen? And that's part of the struggle. It's like we took the time to do the RSA because we were told the RSA we got a grant for it, the Road Commission got a grant for it. We'll do it in 23. We did it in 21 to help the process along. But I'm struggling that it takes this long because in March, when we got a report back from the Road Commission, they said, we'll do this, 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 and this. And we're gonna give it to the group to have them, the state to study, and we work through, and that's the struggle, is that nothing's communicating back and forth. And so I think that's where we keep on getting beat up on with our residents. What do you do? What are you gonna do? What do you do? And so we don't even know, and we don't budget for roads. We're finally, I shouldn't say we won't, but we finally started doing something with it. You know, we're putting $100,000 plus the approximately $41,000 that we burned up this year, next year, I think. So we're putting that in there, but we're still trying to figure out where do we spend it. We have subdivision people that want their subdivision roads done.
and that gets me to that other point, as far as calling in, call the township. Mostly, I think what's happening is somebody calls in from a subdivision. They say, hey, the road in front of my house is garbage.
Mhm.
And they're in a subdivision. And that's where the township kind of has to initiate the activity. And that's where I think that call
We
the
started
township.
that, but I think most of them that we've started, they got their quote and said, I already pay for my roads. I pay for my gas tax.
I know,
And I try to explain to them, I always tell them, first thing I said, you're not gonna like the idea, but this is how it works.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
two of them have spent 1,000 and pretty much they have not come back to say, yes, we can do it.
Yeah.
Because they got sticker shock.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. And some of them are like, can't you just cut that section of road that's out bad and pave the whole thing instead of spending all this time patching it? I don't know what it, I always say, I was janitor all my life, 35 years. And I got into a restaurateur and now I'm into politics and learning how to be a supervisor. And I think that's, to me, I go back to running a business. You have a strategic plan, you share it, you over communicate it, you work to do it. And yes, you're going to PDCA it, plan, do, check, adjust, but it's all about communication. And I think that's all that I'm looking for and our residents are looking for in the township, just communicate and just keep us informed. And it's like, if we send an email asking a question, respond.
Who's their rep right now? Is that you, Peter? It's you. Okay.
Never been there.
Never been there. Okay.
So I think that's where we look at all this type of stuff as we grow. I'm willing to talk about what our growth is.
We now actually have a plan we can discuss with the townships.
Yeah.
But I think in the past, we have not. And Dan Wagner, who we spoke about earlier, has been out there, now Rod is active. They haven't been really interested in hearing some of these things before.
Oh, I know.
But I think the public doesn't understand that this road commission has almost no money for capacity improvements. Our budget is way too small. And to think that we're even studying these things is, you know, maybe beyond what I realized we were actually doing, because for us to the traffic on Long Lake Road is, I used to live along the stone wall in 1973. I know what it was like trying to cross the street there, getting across the road in 73, and I've driven it lately, and it's
Still a stone wall.
still stone walls there, but it's a real busy place.
Yeah.
But your point about our forward thinking, we look at these things, you know, I ask about paved shoulders that we did on Supply Road. I mean, Supply Road's a pretty busy road. We did the paved shoulders and I thought 630, but that we planned that multiple years out and it wasn't even that much money.
Mm-hmm.
And to think about capacity improvements, I think I bet the public would like that, but they're huge numbers.
Well, I think a lot of it is that, you know, you talk about, and I think you go back to the plan, and I think it's telling people what, because most people don't understand, they think the 1 mil they got on their taxes pays for their local roads. I don't think it's not, and some people, we don't understand what it all means, and I think a lot of it is just helping try to explain that to people.
Truthfully,
took me 2 years to really accept it as a road commissioner.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a mental hurdle. Yeah, you pay taxes, you're paying your gas taxes, and by golly, you know, I'm paying my property taxes on the streets that I'm on, and I'm sure that I'm paying taxes to support those roads, but it's a mental hurdle, and it's hard enough for me. And I understand the process, or I've grown to understand the process, and you're dealing with people who, they're not road commissioners, they're not even necessarily politicians, they, you know,
Just
taxes-
driving the road.
they're driving on the roads and they pay their damn taxes, you know? It's,
And I think that's part of it, but it's just understanding what the plans are. It's like Barney. You're gonna take it over, but when? You know?
Can I ask a question?
yeah, please.
Have we posted what we presented to the county board of commissioners last week on our website?
I believe so, but I will check.
The project's coming.
Yeah, and that is something we're doing, we are being more proactive in that, but something you can see.
Right, and I think that, you know, he did say the one in South Long Lake and West Long Lake is being worked on, and Brad and I talked about that for a couple of years, and I understand COVID, I understand all that, but everybody, I get it. I just think it's just trying to figure out where we're going, how we can communicate it, if we have to work on, figure out how to do roads. I mean, I think that's all it's trying to figure out. I mean, and I think you're right. How do our planners work together? How do we do something? And how do we make it better? I mean, there's a commercial that's going on at East Long Lake and North Long Lake Road on that vacant property on the south or north, southeast corner. That's a potential commercial building. So,
And one thing, you know, when we put out the new cost sharing plan and we brought all the different townships in, we showed them how to use that to communicate their priorities of where their roads that they feel in their township need to be addressed. So far, we've had 3 roads identified in the entire county as priorities
By
townships
yeah.
and nothing else.
Are you familiar with the tool, or have you tried to use
put
it?
on it where there's pothole issues too.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't
We've
get
got an app for that.
I didn't get a response on it, but I put it on there.
yeah. No, this is the one that's for the townships to communicate. And realistically, that's what we need to go back to them as we go through this
Yeah.
next quarter, is to stress. That is how we have to communicate. Because you tell the Stonewall, I have no idea where the hell you're talking about.
Heck, we just had an accident. There are 3 cars.
I have no idea where that is, okay? So,
You had to grow up here.
yeah. I did not.
Everybody
I'm
knows
sorry.
where it is.
There used to be white posts along the side between the road.
There's like no room for posts even, you know?
So,
Anyway.
but I mean, that is the key for us,
But I
for
think
communication, is that tool. Because Rachel uses it, she sees it, Larry sees it. And for us to be able to then pull in those and start looking, that's how we start prioritizing where money is going to be going into the local throughs. As we
Right.
finish up the primary network and bring it up to spec, and we start dedicating money into these local throughs, we need to have that information.
I
coming from the
think in terms, to answer I think we are working towards that. We're trying to put a system together where it is easier to go a little bit back and
I
forth on
just want to
this.
be in front of you.
You're certainly in front of us. And you missed the man show downtown or whatever the heck that is.
No, I think in 2023, we do have a plan in place to at least go quarterly. I think
Yes.
the plan is to attend each township meetings quarterly, because we recognize this need to communicate, to hear from the townships what their priorities are, what their issues are, and to communicate from our standpoint, the projects that we are working on and the information that we have. I think part of that communication process also is, like Brad was mentioning, we just have to go back and keep reiterating what has been communicated in the past, like, tell us what your priorities are, use these different tools that we have now available on the website that make it very easy for township supervisors. I think there's a separate app for township supervisors. and there's something
It's a
for
separate
citizen
app.
reporters,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's supposed to be,
yeah.
it's supposed to be allow other people to,
Right.
in the township, we've only been given one password and username, which
Yeah,
is mine,
that's
and they
for
asked
you.
us not to share it with.
Yeah,
everybody.
Right.
that's for you, yeah.
And then there's a
So-
citizen reporter app.
Yeah.
So that's going to be part of the strategy starting in January, is to start going to the townships and communicating and educating them about the tools that we have provided and also for the.
Do we have them scheduled right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, January.
Do you have a newsletter you send out or anything? Because maybe that's an huh?
You send it out
Okay.
to the
Yeah, I
taxes,
know
you
you-
get your money.
You're right. That's right. Send up with
The other thing I'm gonna encourage you and all townships is, after the first year, we are gonna have a strategic planning session. After we get, the appointments are in place and everything, and we want the townships to come. Perfect. To hear what we're thinking,
Just do it before the 12th.
do it for the 12th.
No,
So
answer
we
much.
encourage all the townships, I'm gonna encourage all the townships to come to that strategic planning meeting.
I think a lot of it is that, we all sit in our board meetings, and then when everything goes bad, then everybody shows up, or they have a certain
That's how it
project.
works.
And I think more people ought to be involved, and you might see me more often.
Yeah,
But I
absolutely.
think a lot of it is just knowing what's going on. I think it's, again, it's let me help you and you help us, and I think that's where it's about. We just have to help educate ourselves and educate our residents, and I think that's where it's at, so.
And we can certainly do a better job of communicating.
All right. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you, Ron.
I look forward to projects and lot like that.
All righty. You don't have to miss that episode at Matlock at 9 now.
Matlock, holy You know, I do remember that.
I'm right, yeah.
Okay, well, it's been a while. I missed you guys. I didn't come last month. It was kind of the beginning of the NEPA process. We are into some significant events. As you kind of mentioned, Dan Wagner earlier, we met with MDOT, a very important meeting with MDOT a couple weeks ago, and got a lot of information about the West End. As you know, the West End, we still hadn't, at the end of the Pell, we basically punted and said we haven't looked at that because that wasn't part of the Pell process.
Right.
It's time now. So we're into that heavy right now, looking at the 3 variants that we identified on the west end connecting. That would be the McCray Hill alignment going to the south, Silver Pines alignment, and then there's an alignment in the middle that we have to look at because of the way US 31 goes down and flattens and then goes down again. So we're into that heavy right now. Apologize, I don't have anything to show because it's all sort of in a moving phase. The good news, the west end is less done. The east end now, we did some significant work in the last couple of weeks, engineering wise, to identify a good alignment for what we propose is the bridge. And we're taking advantage of some county property, trying to avoid impacts to parcels on either side of that. We're working with the bridge engineer to see, here's what we want to do. Is this feasible? We're talking about a pretty big bridge, and they're kind of chomping at the bit, trying to get our alignment so that they can begin their TSNL process, a type size and location study for this pretty big bridge. It's really, we've broken it up into 3 segments. The east end, which includes the bridge, the west end, which is the variance at US 31, and then the section in the middle, which is existing Hartman. We've done quite a bit of work on the east end. We're really into the west end. The center section, we're kind of waiting till we get the ends identified, and then we'll get into that and into the center section. Identifying where the impacts are, kind of balancing the impacts, one side or the other. Does it make sense to go down the middle? Does it make sense to shift a little bit to try to avoid impact on one side or the other? I'm trying to give you an update where we're at, kind of high level. I'm hoping in future meetings we can show you something.
Are we gonna, just So you've identified the county-owned piece of property. I think they were gonna just sign it over to us at some point or.
It's owned by the road commission.
Okay, so we did get it signed over as last year or the year before, because the county actually owned it. And then they've been kind of holding it for us. They were
You're
gonna
talking
get
about that property just east
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
east of.
next to the factory or whatever.
Yeah, well, there's a brewery on the south side
Yeah.
and then the meat packing or whatever.
Meatpacking,
Leo's
yeah.
on the north side. Now, that's the tax roll show that as road commission
Okay,
property.
all right, so we've been there for a couple of years now. I remember them talking about signing it over. Is that sufficient, or are we still gonna have to work on either side of that for?
We're pretty sure we can avoid impacts to the operation portions of both those buildings, whether or not we have to identify right of way takes or, acquisition. Our primary purpose is to avoid any impact to the
Change
operational.
to their
facility.
okay. All right.
Yeah, I don't want to do that because, that opens up a whole
It
can of
does.
worms.
I mean, it's one thing going down Hartman, because I mean, it's an existing corridor.
Yeah.
And there's always kind of an understanding, and guess what, right of ways widen sometimes, that's-
Right.
so.
No, we're real pleased with, I'm glad you guys have that property as,
Yeah,
otherwise.
it was planned. I think they bought that, and it has to have been 40 or 50 years ago.
Expecting
With
this
the
to come through.
expectation there would be a bridge at some point.
No, it was smart.
Yeah.
That we looked at going from, we call it the straight across alignment. And then that doesn't take advantage of that property. And then we looked at a variant that does take advantage of that property. And, they're still both in play. And that's somewhat dependent on, how much does a bridge cost if we, it'd be a big curve. It'd be a different alignment or straight across, maybe more simple. So we're in that, we have this one over here that impacts a business. We have
Clearly,
this
there's a
one that
lot more
doesn't.
math when you're doing this.
What's that?
Clearly, there's a lot more math when you're doing this.
Oh,
versus the
absolutely.
straight.
It's more complicated. And
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
complex design translates to complex construction, which has
Yeah.
a big impact on your bottom line, your dollar figure when we get around. We're also looking at profile modifications in the bridge area because there's a 25-foot grade difference between one side of the gorge and the other side. So we have to look at the profile. I mean, we didn't really look at the profile when we did the Pell. We could get across and
As long as we don't do a Zilwaukee or something, the original construct, the Zilwaukee Bridge.
you're talking the geotech failure where they didn't line up at the end.
Just saying,
Well, we won't do that. Interesting you say that. And do you have any questions of Brad? Is there anything that you'd like me to?
Well, no,
say?
the only other thing I was gonna say is, we do have some obstacles in the way, no matter where we go. There is a very, very large cell tower out behind MDOT off of 31 there. And that would be very costly for us to have to move, and Phil was pointing that out to
I
Wayne
mean,
and I
on the
today.
south side of the MDOT building there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually, I think that's the IRS building.
The ARS building, yeah.
Yeah, it's on the very south of that development, just as the existing Hartman curves north, it's just on the left-hand side. It's a very large cell tower with its own power.
Why did they ever have to make that hard curve there in the first?
Well, because they didn't want to go straight across and at that point, see, the issue was.
Because it's a lousy point for access to the road, right? That's why.
It flattens out down at the bottom of the hill, and that's where they brought the road in, so, that's one of those struggles that we have. The McCray Hill variant and the Silver Pines variant have significant impact on US 31. It's a major grade change.
But what would it take to say raise the grade on the north end and then lower the grade, or raise the grade on the north end and then just kind of try to taper a little bit back on the south end?
Well, we're looking
Yeah.
at profile modifications on US 31 of 10 to 15 feet in areas that we can
Clearly,
get a flat.
This is the kind of project that would warrant that versus the
Sure.
original road.
Certainly,
Yeah.
certainly. The mid alignment does very little to impact US 31. It hits an existing flat area that's sufficient enough to allow for northbound downgrade traffic to stop. We're talking about a major intersection,
Right.
which is going to be some level of stop control. we're looking at a roundabout, which is not stopped, but it's slow enough to stop traffic. And so we have to have that flat area.
Don't need anybody sliding into it.
No, we don't want anybody sliding.
Right.
into
And
it, no.
one of the other things that we have to take into consideration is the future of what does it mean for us at this point where it reaches 31? Is it a permanent dead end there, or do we need to take into account the fact that at some point we need to get out to East Silver Lake Road?
Yeah,
Because
we have to be careful.
airport, I mean, to take people there, shoot them up the airport and try and get out, it's another problem. And it's a long ways down to Chum's Corner. So there's gotta be some other things that we have to look at. So it's gonna be still some discussion and some other.
What we're looking at is things, methods of connecting US 31 that don't preclude potential future expansion to the west. Our study area for this environmental assessment is US 31 and Keystone. And the feds and the environmental process doesn't allow us to really, unless that's part of the study. So what we're doing does not preclude any of the alternatives that we're looking at do not preclude development.
That's probably, you know, speaking to communications, I mean, it's probably not a bad idea that I mean, one of our biggest proponents for the crossing is the supervisor at Garfield Township. And what's happening is going to be kind of important there too.
Absolutely.
You know, so,
Yeah, and they're in the process right now of starting their master plan revision.
okay.
So they are gonna be coming in to see us again in January. to
I
talk.
met with, I saw John Syke today.
Okay.
You know, I stopped in to say hello and wish him a happy holidays. And of course, we got into talking about this project, and he did talk about master planning in the west and all of that. And so it's.
I think some opportunities are gone now that were there before with some of the development that's even now being finished up along Lake Road, you know, but that's a whole other thing, you know, Zimmerman and
Well, what's going on right now is personally my favorite part of the process, the engineering aspects of it. That's my favorite part. We're having a good time with it right now.
all right.
Just to say something. You want me to stand up here a little more?
No, not really.
You can wait there for half an hour.
Merry Christmas.
I appreciate your time, and I'm sure we'll see you again soon.
All right.
Right, everything okay?
I'm all set. Thank you.
See you all next month.
All right, so that brings us now, if the budget discussion is soaked in, let's talk some more or approve the proposed budget for 2023.
No, I just wanted, just an observation from the standpoint of the discussion we were having earlier about local roads. When I'm looking at the budget from just the local road maintenance standpoint, we are spending more money in 2023 than we did in 2021 and 2022, and that goes across the board. I'm looking at local road maintenance numbers, traffic control numbers, the heavy maintenance of the processing. So I think that the local roads, in my opinion, based on the budget, are not being ignored. I'm going to put that on the record here. So in order to facilitate discussion, I'll just make a motion to approve the 2023 budget.
All righty,
Second.
and support by Joe. All right. Any further discussion, Alan? You have anything?
Well, the commissioners don't manage the road commission. The manager manages the road commission. If I were to pick the budget apart, I'd pick $1 million off this capital outlay and spend it on some roads. But that's, I guess, not my job. So that's all I kind of have to say about it. I think we haven't increased our spending enough.
All right, any further comments? Okay, and just to address, I mean, we can always make those arguments, and we have made the arguments. In fact, for example, on when we discussed the roundabouts on Keystone. You know, I drive those on occasion, and I like the one at River Road, and I think the one at Cass Road is an absolute monstrosity. That's just one of those things that I think we didn't put. We should have just taken that money, just, you know, like, as you say, put it in the roads. When we get into our strategic discussion, I think we need to talk about how we can make sure that our vision, if such a word is to be appropriately used, is heard throughout the process of budgeting and management. Okay, so I mean, I'm not in disagreement with you necessarily, but you're right. We have a manager. The manager allocates and then presents it to us. And if we don't like it, we can certainly shut it down. But in the meantime, we need to have operational consistency. And as Painter's mentioned already, we're spending the same amount, and we're going to actually spend more as a result of some of the carryover.
And also one thing, you know, we are rapidly approaching the MPO. And when we move there, that's going to be at least another $1 million a year towards road. So we are going to be continuously increasing.
Because it's necessary.
Yes, and we also are becoming more urbanized, and that $1.6 million that we have for the urban premium is going to go up drastically. So we're going to see another probably $600,000 in urban premium as our area becomes more and more developed.
So when we bond for the new building, that'll come out of MTF, right?
Yes. And how long you want it bonded is completely up to you, because we can bond it under MTF bonds through the Act 51 pool, and we could do it up to 30 years if you wanted to.
So what I was going to say to respond to you is we can bond out longer, and so our payment won't be $900,000 here. It might only be $400,000. I think it's just $500,000 to put back into the system.
Yeah, and Joe, it's not like I'm against capital stuff.
No,
I'm glad I'm sitting here and the roof is not leaking.
Yeah, that's.
I mean,
There are some financial things that we
everything
can do to generate more money.
has a place in the whole package. But our roads, you know, a lot of them aren't that great. And we're at the rate we're going, we might convince ourselves we're making small improvements. And I think South Airport Road was a great example of the right project at the right time. That was a mess, and the road commission engineered it and bonded it and built it, and it was great. There's a lot of other areas where we don't have enough money, so we need to find a way to get some more money to some of these roads.
And I agree, but the fundamental problem is it's not there, and we still are the 8th best county out of 83.
First would be the
Leelanau County.
Yeah.
And Wexford County is between 1 and 8.
Yeah.
So we've got, in this area, we have 3 in the top 8 in the state of Michigan.
And we're 21st in MTF.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But there's a big difference in the total miles.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Well,
It's not apples
we
to apples.
can argue that
it's not.
stuff till the
No,
cows-
And I don't want to argue, I'm just saying, the roads I drive on are not getting much.
Anything else on the budget?
And just one more thing, that information came from the County Road Association.
No, that came from the Asset Management Council, the state run
Okay.
organization.
Okay, but
They are
prior
the
to
ones
that.
They communicated it to us through Sierra.
Right.
Roll call, please.
Underwood,
yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Chasm,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes,
Jim.
Yes. All right, we have a 2023 budget, and then we'll look at it in January to find out what we have to roll over.
we will be close.
All
It'll
right.
probably be December I'm sorry, February by the time we actually.
Okay,
approve.
general, let's see, resolution of Grand Traverse County Road Fund General Appropriations Act. The resolution that allows us to spend money.
Need a motion? Yeah, you have to actually approve this specific resolution.
I move to approve the resolution 2022-1-7.
Yeah. Joe and the mayor. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yes.
Brown, Hatham,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes.
All right, moves us to our consent calendar. But
The consent calendar is used to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together without discussion. Requests by any person present to remove any item from the consent calendar for full discussion as an agenda item are automatically respected. The action noted in parentheses for all items remaining on the consent calendar are approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. The manager recommends the following items be adopted. 1, minutes, 2, payroll, 3, accounts payable, 4, financial reports, and 5, reports and communications.
all right, I would entertain a motion unless there's anyone on the board like to pull something off consent calendar. Anybody in the public?
Yes,
You do.
I do.
Okay,
Can I do that?
you can do that.
Number 3.
Number 3. Accounts payable. All right, anybody in the public? All right, I'd entertain a motion minus item number
Motion to
3.
approve the consent calendar with the deletion of number 3.
Alan?
Support.
And support. All right, roll call please.
Chasm,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes. All right, brings us to item number E, items removed from the
Wait,
consent.
no. Oh, yeah, separate, sorry,
Yeah.
my bad.
Items removed from the consent calendar. Number 3, the accounts payable. What did we screw up on?
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe we didn't. I don't
Oh,
know.
okay.
But I was going through here and I see a couple items for Wade Trim and they total out to almost $20,000. I was wondering if there was 2 separate invoices. Is it all part of the same project or is it 2 separate deals or?
I believe the rate is, Heather, is she on there?
She is.
One was for 10-4 and the other one was for 8.
Asset management.
I think
work.
that was our asset management as our selected, one of our selected.
So we had approved that dollar amount?
Yes, as
20,000?
you approved the original contract with them for professional services.
Okay.
And we had a discussion about the asset management, that it would be under 25. We didn't know exact amount. But I don't know exactly, I'd have to go back and look to see what it was approved at.
Well, I guess seeing that amount, I guess I just didn't remember that we had approved.
You there, Heather? She's there.
I asked her to unmute, so.
Yep,
Perfect.
so Carl, I don't have those in front of me, but of what I recall, there was notes that Wayne had on there where an additional amount was approved. I believe that was at a meeting that everything with Wade Trim as far as I don't remember what the original contract was, but there were amounts that were going to go over it that was approved. From memory, that's what I believe those invoices are. Until I would be back in the office, I would have to look for those.
Approved by the board?
I believe so. I would have to, again, I would have to go, this would have gone back into like April.
Okay.
But I can definitely check on it. We can hold off on that one and then come back to it.
And I know right on the invoices that we paid, Wayne has the notes listed on the front as he approved those invoices. And so I'll be able to provide those for you.
Well, yeah, my question is not Wayne approving them. But, we're all,
did we approve as a board? That's my question.
What's the dollar amount that?
Well,
has to be
so
approved
the
by?
invoice amount on,
Well, the one was 10,435.32, I think, and the other one was 98,5901. So it's just shy of,
And
well,
when,
it's-
does it say what the date is?
yeah, the date.
Yeah, one is-
10/17.
yeah, and the other one was like 11,900 or
So the
something.
one for 10/4/35/32 was on 10/17. And
The other one is, I think, 11,900, I think, or
I got it
something.
right here. Hang on a second.
So is there a specific dollar amount?
15,000 for any project.
Yeah.
That, below that, it's.
It's.
He can,
I-
the
I-
manager can approve
But
that.
above that, then the board has.
Yeah.
And this would certainly fall under that privy unless it's all the same job.
Right, that's my, that was.
Well,
my
and the
question.
invoices are different.
Right, because.
Well, the invoices
Yeah.
would be different. They
Yeah.
invoiced them
But is
twice,
it,
but
yeah,
But the other one is due, the other one is for November 9th for the $9,859 and a penny.
right.
And
because
If it's
each,
two separate jobs, it's not an issue at all.
right. Because each invoice is under 15,000, but combined they are
Right,
over.
so if it's-
they were-
But you
I
can
thought
do that all day long.
Right, exactly.
Right.
it could have
Yeah,
been billing
that's
out, partial.
Yeah.
Do- Heather, do you recall if Wade Trip was billing out partially for those at all?
Yes.
or-
Yeah, it was not for the whole entire, it was just for an amount up to that. And I'm trying to remember what board meeting it was. I really believe I was sitting in there and Wayne had expressed that that was going to be more than originally thought. I feel like it was just before we were discussing the initial budgets. But again, this is going from my memory. I'll be able to pull those. I know there are notes right on top of it. Typically when he turns those in, he's got the details of what was approved or what wasn't. I'm just not in the office. I apologize tonight to pull
Oh,
them for you.
That's okay. That's not a problem.
And we've already paid those. I mean, I know that we're approving them, but we've already paid those. as well.
Yeah, but we can
Well,
figure
let's,
out.
this the process. Let's make sure that we followed our process. That's where I'm at.
Well,
We owe them the money. We're gonna have to pay them. They did the
so I
job.
mean, the other
That's not
option
their
is,
fault.
too, at this point, you approve it.
We're gonna approve it. I will. approve
But
it.
you
That's
you
not a
make a
problem.
separate thing to approve it as a separate line item, an active line item. Then if we didn't, it's covered. And if we did, we'll get you the other stuff that documents it. But I'm pretty sure we did, because I remember talking about the fact that it was a little more because of the depth that we wanted of it. And I know we talked about it before they actually gave it to us, because we knew it was very large. So I know it was September when we talked, at least in the beginning, about the fact that it was getting bigger as we started to take into account some of the other issues that we have with the signals and the culverts that the state is making us do this year that we didn't have in the original asset
Well,
management.
let's just make sure we did the process correct. That's the bottom line. We owe them the money. We're not gonna get out of not paying
All
it.
right, so what do we want to make a motion to approve this, or did you want to line out, adding it out for later approval?
Well, the one's already paid. That ship has sailed. I'm sure. No, let's go ahead and pay it, but let's go through make sure the process.
All right.
If it wasn't
We just
handled
need some
right,
backup,
yeah.
some backup at, yeah.
So you want to do that in January's meeting then, or do you want to try and do that, just make an approval for it tonight? Will you tell me either way it works? either way?
I think we approve it, like, as you say.
I'm fine with that.
We're
I'm fine.
we're paying it, okay, but we just, to try to follow up, and I think it'd be appropriate if, at your first convenience, that you get the information to us, so
Yeah,
that Carl can take a
I'll
look at
talk
it.
to Wayne on Monday and make sure we get something.
All right, so I'd entertain a motion to approve, the accounts payable, item number 3, for the amounts of $482,698.35, and also for the $511,567.45.
I'll support that.
All right, so Carl's motion support? Or
I'll make that motion.
Okay, you make the motion.
Sure.
All right, Al. All right, roll call, please.
Freeman.
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Chasm.
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes, all right. All right, so planner, some equipment purchases by the looks of it. Item F, 2023 Whacker.
This is a small roller that we need to be able to start doing some of those small projects that we had talked about as our guys.
Was it Bill?
Yeah, that was one of his big things.
Mausers.
But we are at the point now where our guys are getting better at understanding how to do this. And we feel that to get good quality ride, we can't use a compactor plate anymore for some of the sizes of what we're doing. We need to have an actual roller that can give us a small area. So when we come to these stop signs, which is typically where these problems are, we're not leaving behind chatter. We're actually able to roll it out smooth and use it for, a good quality product instead of having to try and get a contractor in, which no contractor wants to come in for 8 tons of materials put down.
Motion to approve the Whacker roller purchase, 20,973.10 Northwest.
I'll support it.
Discussion.
I guess I have a question here. It says at the Sourcewell price. Who is Sourcewell?
Sourcewell is another company that has come in that the state of Michigan, most of the road commissions are checking them versus My Deal. So they do the same thing, but they do it nationwide. My Deal just does it in Michigan. So many of the road commissions are already using them almost exclusively because they're a better deal than My Deal. The only reason why a lot of us stay with My Deal is because that's the only people we can get salt from. So we are finding prices that are far cheaper under Sourcewell, and they are all competitively bid. We checked with the attorneys on it. It all meets the standards of what needs to be done for a bid process because it's all closed bid openings. And it's the same basic format as My Deal, so that we can look at prices for vehicles. We can look at prices for office supplies. We can look at prices for, a table, you name it. And they just have a ton more products. So that's one of the places that we now check against My Deal to find for a lot of these standard things that are small expense type things or are very specific. And this is
the first time we bought from them then?
No, we've bought from them just on smaller items.
Oh, okay.
We've been buying from them for a bit on a lot of the smaller things that we need.
And maybe I missed this, but what is a roller compactor? What does it do?
That's to roll out hot asphalt. to
Oh,
smooth it
okay.
out.
That's
all right.
Sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, and it's just right now we've historically been using a compactor plate and it just is not good enough. I know.
Yeah, so it'll look a little more professional when it's.
Yeah, and we can do a little larger with this. So
Can we carry enough around? I mean, enough material to put down too?
We can do that. We have enough trucks that we can do that. And we've rented a roller in the past. And like this year, we rented a roller, and by the time you start looking at the amount we're spending on rental, we're better off buying it and just using it throughout the year instead of renting it once.
All righty. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Underwood.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Chasm.
Yes.
Freeman.
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes, all right. Item G, annual maintenance upfitting, yikes.
Yes, so, all right, this is to upfit our trucks. And I want to give a quick understanding to everybody, because even I was a little confused as to how the different prices came out. This is through a My Deal, this one is, but we have different kinds of trucks for different purposes. So we have trucks that have a V in them that we use during the summer as well to spread gravel down the side of the road to fill in shoulders. We have regular dump boxes with a slip-in slider type situation for applying sand and salt during the winter. And then during the summer, we use it as a general dump truck. And then we have other trucks that are designed very specifically for us to be pulling trailers. So there's a difference for each of them. They also serve a different purpose based on where they're doing the snow removal. So the prices of them are each a little different, but we have a variety of them because of the fact that we use those trucks year round. And without having that variety of the different trucks, we don't have the ability to accomplish everything we need in the summer. You could take the cheapest one and it would work fine for everybody for snow. May not be the most efficient, but it would not be usable for our summer work. And so we have different prices, and we are now at a point where a lot of the material or a lot of the hardware we're reusing. So even with some of our stuff that we have, even if they're the same truck, if we can pull together stuff off of 2 existing trucks that are going out and we can put it back together and have it work, we do that in-house too. So there's a variation of prices, but all of it is based on my deal.
So what are we purchasing here?
This is the upfitting to take it from a
Okay.
chassis,
All right.
just the chassis and the cab, to be an actual truck that does our work for us.
Yeah, Brad, can we just kind of group these together, G and H?
Yeah.
Somebody doesn't like the standard scraper that Truck and Trailer is selling, so we're getting these to go with those.
Right, because they're heavier duty.
And who does I've been to Truck and Trailer, looked at their outfitting equipment, they're really fabulous. Are they doing the control work for these underbodies?
They get either a Dickie John or Rachel, come on, help me out. What's the other one that we're contacting?
Isn't it a Rex Roth?
Rex Roth, that's the other one. So those are the controllers. So they buy them from them, and then they align that and get everything run through the machine so that it's protected from the elements. They do a great job, but they buy their equipment as a huge package for all the heavy duty stuff. And we're telling them we don't like their underbody scraper as much as the ones from Heights right here in town. The nice thing too is with the Heights is actually cheaper. It's cheaper and it's heavier duty. And all of the road commissions around us have now switched to that because it's a better scraper all the way around. And it works better, especially during the summer, to scrape gravel roads.
And these are for trucks we've already authorized.
Purchase up, yes.
So you want to put the 2 together then?
I make a motion, we approve the upfitting for the winter maintenance trucks and the underbody scrapers.
No, I'll second that.
For both the amounts?
Yeah, for the 2 amounts, more or less, whatever those.
Okay. So Alan and Joe together as one motion. All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call please.
Brown,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes, all right. We've said to the workforce here, they're gonna have the best equipment, they're gonna have the best equipment.
We try.
We gotta keep.
And
it that way.
we are definitely,
All right.
our mechanics appreciate you more than anybody else because they don't have near as many hard grease fittings that have to be replaced because they've worn out, so.
All right, that brings us to our manager's review section. The manager has indicated that he does not want to go into a closed session for this, so we'll start it off.
We need to get Heather on.
Yeah, Heather has been gracious enough to provide us with the summary.
Do you want video first?
If she can, yes. Because I think she has some things that they do not have. I don't know if she has it available or not, but at least then we can see her and not care.
Audio is fine too.
Yeah, I'm here with audio. It says I cannot come, I'm not enabled to start video.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. If you wanted to open up with some commentary or anything, or I could, either way. she get booted off or something?
No, she got switched to an attendee, so I'm bringing her back to panelist, so she is good. That's unmute. Good to go.
All right.
You there, Heather?
I am. I don't know if you guys can see me, but I can no longer see you guys. So, oh, there you are.
Okay.
Okay, it looks like the video is not gonna work. It keeps saying it's not enabled. Are you guys good with that?
That's fine. That's fine with us.
Okay. So thank you all for, participating and going through the review, for Brad. In front of you, I believe Kylie has printed for you where I put together just a summary. Beyond the summary tonight, if you guys want me to provide you with additional pieces of it, it was because it was around 75 questions. It was, a little bit long as far as the printout. But let me just go ahead and I'm going to read through this a little bit. The annual evaluation for our managing director, Brad Kluczynski, was completed by the 5 Board of Commissioners and shows a favorable rating in all the areas with the suggested points of growth and direction for the organization. This summary was gauged from all of those questions and including several opportunities for the commissioners to also comment on previous goals and their future outlooks. Overall, Brad met or exceeded all expectations surrounding the following areas. So these areas are, basically where we geared all of our questions. And those were on customer dedication, innovation, staff and board relations, integrity, respect, professionalism, managing vision, including the purpose and the strategy, team building, delivering results, and the managerial courage and communication. And I just want to note the same kind of survey questions, review, evaluation process that you guys did for Brad. That's the same that we're working through with all the administrative employees within the organization. So I feel like these focus points are going to be a great building block for us as we go into that strategic planning and goal setting in the beginning of 2023. Because we'd like everybody to be in that same alignment. And that's what we're hoping for out of that. So areas that you guys noted Brad to be, exceptionally strong and having those attributes for deliverance were the ability to attract the top talent. It's a kind of a dog eat dog world out there, attracting talent and retaining everyone. So that's a note that you guys have put on there. Brad's professionalism, even when he is, put on the spot, maybe if you want to say in different areas, he handles himself very well. Those were some of the keynotes that you guys added in there. He's got an exceptional drive for bringing on new technology and innovation. Is typically always thinking outside of the box. And he is that forward thinker. He encourages the entire team to be forward thinkers. He pushes for a lot of change and results. Areas that were suggested for growth and development would be some quicker communications with the board members. Again, I think in the beginning of this meeting, we talked about, or I heard you guys talk about the townships again. And while we have made improvements, it seems like the notation was to continually make improvements, not only with the townships, but the local officials, and that including you as board members. Also a piece of that was noted was the follow through with different commitments that are made during those times, and to continue and keep effective communications and connections with his management team. Overall, the basis for what will probably be some of the goals that come out of that final strategic planning session is to continue the push and the focus on the east-west connection, the bridge, i.e. the bridge project. There was kind of a request in there to find that champion that could be outside of the organization, kind of more of a public official to keep that running, along with Brad and the Road Commission. Continue to streamline the township cost sharing projects. And I think a little bit Heider said it earlier is that we've committed to doing the quarterly touches with the townships on that. and also making sure that they can and remember how to use those tools if they need refreshers for a lot of the mapping and communications that we've built for them to share with their residents. The Kingsley facility new build, that was something that was last year's goal that also has been met, but also is a new focus for the coming year to just continue that on the quicker, fast pace that we can. Consultant management was an area that wanted to be maybe just have Brad have a close watch and an eye on as we go forward with different projects and where we utilize our consultants. Continue with the website transparency and possibly add a lot of frequently asked questions. I do know that this is an area that Brad is already having Larry and Rachel focus on. So that is moving forward. Continue to concentrate on the traffic congestion areas around the county. And as kind of a follow-up, and I feel like wraps up the evening, is continuous improvement on community relations. I think that's something that we can always build upon. So that is the summary that I provided from all the notes that I took from you. And I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Well, Heather, I do appreciate your work, and I appreciate some of the insight that you've offered while you were going through this. I think this summary is quite good, actually. I think it's a little more concise, and it's a matter of record. It's something we can look back on, and you can look back on to see if you're improving on any of this, or if you know. And I tend to agree personally. I think that your strengths, certainly there are some changes. Sometimes change is hard for people to accept. But we definitely, the communications thing is a big one, and yes, and that does include us as well, as far as with the townships and what have you. So those are just my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that I've had the least amount of interaction with you, considering I came on the board in July. But what I've found from interacting with Brad and talking to Brad and sitting through the meetings that I had to, the orientation meetings, one thing I can say with absolute conviction is that, you know, you have a huge, deep well of knowledge regarding and expertise in the job that you do. And you explain those very sometimes complicated issues in a way that someone who's not like me, who's not, you know, from this field or area can understand. So I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the fact that we have a manager that has that kind of knowledge and scope of knowledge and breadth of knowledge. And some of the areas were suggested for growth, yeah, and that's would be my, you know, I agree with that too, that communication. And I know that part of the discussion that we have had is, you know, sometimes we all get bogged down in the day-to-day operational aspect of the job and getting, you know, and we tend to kind of forget that, you know, part of the job of a manager is also to be a public relations guy for the road commission. You are the face of the road commission other than, you know, on a day-to-day basis. So maybe in the strategic session that we have, we can also explore ways on how we can help you to, you know, be that role and be in that role more than you have been able to perhaps in the past. So, and yeah, and I would appreciate, I think that the comment about quicker communication with board members, it hasn't been a lot for me, again, because of, but there, I've noticed a couple of times where I've sent a request and I never got a response, and I wondered what happened, whether you got it or not. So those are just my comments.
Just gonna go around the table.
Yeah, if you want to.
I think that things are going well. I appreciate the responses. You responded to me very quickly when I called for questions or answers. From where we started for communication to where we're at now, in the 2 years I've been here, is already a world of difference. We got a ways to go in doing our PR or whatever we want to call it. And I look forward to working through that next year. but I do think we're running well. I think the employees seem to be happy when they come out. The equipment is wonderful. Nobody has to drive around with floorboards gone out of their trucks anymore. And that's all due to your management style with the asset management plan and working everything through it. And I just think that we're doing a well job. I know that we're not understood quite well by the public because they don't understand all the nuances of funding roads and how things happen, but just a matter of getting our communications out there to education. I think we'll do more. So,
I'm just gonna comment just real quickly on staffing. I think in the last 3 or 4 years here, this, you know, as an organization as a whole, the staffing has improved. A lot better talent all the way around. I think, and, you know, and Brad is, you know, been the one that has brought those people on board.
Yeah, it was great. When I asked something, I know I don't communicate with the office, but when you've called me or when I've called, it's communication is good. In the community, we maybe still have some work to do, and some of it is people who just might not accept the road commission as they are, nor the manager that we have. They don't like the ideas that are presented, and we might not find a way to win every heart. But I think, you know, every policy, the road improvement policy, which you guys worked on, and I came in on the tail end of the local roads, things are happening within the community members that they'll appreciate what we're doing. Maybe still a little slow, but we're working there. I read through Heather's summary. Did you feel like we were fair?
Yeah, I think, you know, there are always things. And if you're not pointing out something that I'm not doing, then something is wrong, because nobody's perfect. And I appreciate even harsh criticism, because that helps me figure out where you as a board want me to go. I will say, just because a couple of these have come up very recently, and you may not be quite as up to date with them, we are actually looking at having schematics, preliminary schematics for the Kingsley building here, probably Monday. So at that point, we need to sit down and start talking about that. And it has been a long-term process. Much of it was the fault of the state, but you know, it's the nature of government. At times, they take a long time to go through it. But I think we are moving forward quite quickly on it. And the website transparency, we're having a complete redo of our website. Nobody likes our website. I don't like our website. So it needs to be.
I comment on it every time I do.
It needs to be modernized for sure and be more user friendly. So, and I do what I can with the east-west corridor. That is one of the things that preoccupies a lot of my time. I do meet with civic groups around. You know, I've met with the Knights of Columbus, I think it was, and then I met with Rotary, and I met with, you know, all these other groups that talk about it. And I am very dedicated to making sure that that happens. I know that is something that I've heard about since I was a little kid, and I'm tired of hearing about it. So that is one that you're never going to have. You know, I think there's still room for me to improve, and I work hard at it. But there are things that if you miss something, if you don't hear from me, please. The biggest thing is text for me is tough. My thumbs do not work on the text. So, you know, if you text, expect a call most of the time. That's usually the best way. And my phone is always on. I get calls all the time. So feel free, call me at 2 in the morning. I don't care. Doesn't matter. So, but I appreciate the feedback, and I look forward to this strategic planning, because I think at that point we can have a strategy put together that's going to work for the entire community. And one of the issues that, as we totally restructured our evaluations of employees too, so that when you look at those 3 goals that we end up with, those 3 high-level strategies, because that's typically what you're looking for, is 3. Every single employee in this organization will have a goal in their goals, that they will have goals that all fall up to one of those. So they will be able to see where they impact the entire organization and make sure that everybody here is on that same page. Because truly, the reason I am doing what I'm doing here is because I have great employees. These employees here are phenomenal. And I think we get better every year. People are learning more every year. We've got a lot of challenges coming. We've got a new financial manager that's going to start January 3rd, but we are ready to go. And I think, you know, we have a lot of improvement that is still going to be shown. And between Rachel and Larry, that GIS is going to be something amazing. And I would highly recommend, when you have a second, come in and have them show you some of the capabilities, because it's truly amazing. We're tracking vehicles. We know how much salt they're putting down. I really love my job here. And I think, you know, to not thank this staff for making what I do possible, this would be a disservice on my part.
Well, like I said, I'd like to reiterate, I appreciate the effort to put it into this form. In some ways, the process for us, in my opinion, you know, at the end, it kind of got a little confusing, you know, which in the order in which some questions were asked, but it worked out very well in the way that it's presented to us here. And I really have to give Heather some credit for putting that together. And thank you, Kylie, for making sure that we had it here in front of us. I agree with you on the employees. I think, you know, the comments about our quality is definitely going up. And I hope that we can continue to see this quality.
And the morale is really high too,
Good.
compared to what it was when I started here. It's night and day.
All right.
So I'm very happy with the staff.
Any other thoughts around?
Just the whole team. There was one Saturday, this was before we had the app out, driving along 3 Mile, and I noticed a large hole along the side of it. Texted a picture to Brad. No, you don't text, but within an hour, the team was out there and they had it marked and they were checking it out, and probably saved us from a
Major
disaster.
Well, yeah, and when you have guys that look forward to deer hunting year round, and then we get 5-10 inches of snow and they pack up camp to come in to plow, that says something about their dedication to us here at the Road Commission.
Do you need a motion to approve this review, or what, or is it just for information?
It's a review. I mean, we've pretty much,
Okay.
we've done it. I mean, it's, I think.
Finalize it, so I wasn't sure.
Sure, no, it just, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you want to make a motion, we accept the summary and agree with it or something. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's necessary. I think it speaks for itself. Where's Ipsilla order? So, anyway, so that would bring us, so I'm glad we got through that okay. That brings us to informational items.
There's a couple of things I got for you.
Okay.
Okay, number one, there's a sheet on your table there that's in legal. Those are not all filled positions, but those are all of the administrative positions. As per the request that we do a surrounding area kind of another wage study. Unfortunately, nobody's really updated their information, and they're all waiting till basically now when they approve their stuff to say where they are. But we did do some research, and the reports on the labor statistic reports say that the 1% ban, which is the 1% of increase that is the most popular amongst all people in the US and even applied to here. So when we broke it down, is somewhere between 5.3 and 6.2%. So we are averaging for all of the employees, we are averaging very close to 6%. Some of those are people that have not just general increases, because we basically adjusted this scale here up 3% and then had merit-based increases as well. And some of those are people that moved into a new position over the course of the year. So they might be a little higher than others, but they're taking on a lot more responsibility. So I just wanted to have that for you and let you know that, we're in that 5.8 to 6% overall for the non-union employees. And then we will be discussing very soon, probably in March or April at the latest, we're going to have to come back to the board and have a closed session to discuss how you want us to approach negotiations for the union. So that being said, that's where we kind of fall out. Several people have changed titles. We've had a couple of people leave us. Our surveyor, Steve Vai, has left. And so we've got 2 people that have taken on some of his duties over the course of this last year. So, there's some variance, but, everyone's in that ballpark of 2 to 3% merit plus. So they're somewhere between 5 to 6 and a couple of them up a little bit higher for what they've taken on. So just so you know, that's the bandwidth. That tells you from low to high based on, and if you want more detail on that, I am more than willing to give you anything you need. But we feel that that is a comfortable rate for what we are here. And we feel that that is going to help keep and retain talent. Based on the discussions we've had, with the people that were interviewing for the financial manager, we have had we are low compared to some, but we are in the ballpark, and we found somebody who was very anxious to take it on because of his experience in the interview with the team. So he likes the personalities and the way we work as a team. So I think we're kind of right in where we need to be in that ballpark there.
So your research found a range of 5.3 to 6.2 nation.
And also we figured it down to here. We started with the nation to see where it was, and it was just too scattered.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
we narrowed it to Michigan, and then we narrowed it to northern Michigan.
Yes.
And that's about where we came in, was the 5.3 to 6.2 against the average increase people are achieving this year.
Okay.
So, and that's.
You almost have to look at the populations being the same and everything
Yeah.
to really get a.
And we did compare it against communities that are roughly the same size as us in road commissions to the best of the ability we could. And we will be doing that again in the middle of the year, so we can keep you guys up to date with where things go.
So by when do we have to make this decision?
You've approved the budget. but-
Right.
So, but, as far as setting it, unless you guys have an issue with me saying it, I'll just apply the percentages. The only one you
Last
typically.
meeting, if you recall, we had this discussion.
Right.
It was basically,
We didn't make a decision.
no, we just.
No, you said if there's an issue, we had discussions and we were, talking 5-ish, 6-ish,
Yeah.
whatever it might be, and you asked me to come back with this, and this is where we came.
Right, because we were talking about percentages, and
Yeah.
my thought was, well, what are we just randomly picking a percentage? I wanted some data
Right,
to give us
And
a
so we use-
perspective was what we were going to, decide.
And we used some of the same counties we did. Also, we
For the
picked
wage
out,
study,
and we picked out cities this time because we didn't have enough counties to respond to give us a good measurement. And so they fell into that. They fell into a little bit larger band, really, because there weren't as many numbers, so we couldn't get that kind of constriction. But pretty much everybody's at a minimum of 5, and a couple of them were as high as 7.5.
So this is just my personal opinion. We have approved the budget.
right.
Why don't we just let the manager then allocate those increases the way he's the one who's dealing with these employees and manages them on a daily basis and sees who deserves what.
That's how it normally
Right.
works.
We've done it before.
So it's just to make sure that
Yeah,
you
we've done it
understand
before.
how that money came out.
Because outside of that, it's contract. I mean, and then we discussed. the
And you have
contract.
to-
He
you have to
negotiates
approve
it
the
for us
contract.
anyway.
Right.
Right.
So you have the authority to use the average.
To just spread this out, assuming there were no
I do
issues.
have a question. Does that include him?
Never.
No, we set the salary for the manager.
Should we do that tonight?
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
I think that's something that we'd like to separate it a little bit, even though.
Yes, historically, we've done it in November for this, but it can be, all I can say is it can be problematic for Heather.
Okay.
That's the only issue. She has to go back and do something retro.
Here, top to bottom.
So do you need a motion?
No, it's just for your.
I do want to ask you, do you consider yourself a manager or managing director?
By the new state titles, I'm the managing director. And that's, there's only two of them that you're either a managing director or an engineer manager now, according to the state.
Okay.
And then you have a superintendent,
Good information.
which
We will,
has to be, you have to have someone titled superintendent.
we will let the, yeah, I think maybe, because we've done it before and then we've gone and done like a retroactive, we do it to January 1st when we do it. It goes to January 1st. So it's not he's not gonna lose anything. It's just a matter of when we decide to do it. So.
Did you say you had something else for us?
Oh, no, nothing major, other than the fact that we are expecting snow coming up here tomorrow. And depending on who you're listening to, it is expected to go through Tuesday. So it could be an interesting time. So everybody be careful this weekend, because it's not going to be that cold. It's going to be going back and forth, and we could have some significant ice. But we have people set up and ready to go, so we will have a cut.
Right. All right, so commissioners' comments, questions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Start with Alan this time. Nothing. Hater.
Joe and I attended the Board of Commissioners meeting where Brad and Wayne and Jay
I watched it.
presentation, and unlike the last one, this was the questions were held. But Jay, everyone was allowed to make their presentation, and and it was. I thought it was a well done presentation by all three of you. So good job, and congratulations on doing a good job there. And I thought it was well received by the commissioners, and they got to see the projects that the road commission has for next year and beyond in their districts, and all the day-to-day stuff that no one notices. And when Jay superimposed those things on the map was just covered with dots, and you couldn't even see what was underneath it. And it gave them an idea of how much the road commission is doing beyond just those major projects. So I thought it went very well.
I have one question. Cass and Keystone. There's no lights.
Yeah.
Do you guys know Doug DeYoung at all?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Is that okay?
He's finally working with us.
Okay.
The people there told us as of like a week and a half ago, they said it would be at least 58 days or something to that effect.
Okay.
So we got him involved and basically said, look, we can either get this done now, or we can have you move your poles, which we allowed you to leave in place, so we can put up our own poles, so that when we're done, we don't have any additional expense. And they don't want to move those poles.
Oh, yeah, why?
Because it would cost them
I
a
know.
fortune. So he's working with us.
Okay.
And we are expecting to see it.
Company.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because they've had the authorized inspection for over a month now.
Okay.
And they just can't get around to making the 15-minute run of line that it is. Because all it is literally coming from that building out to the pole.
Okay. Thank you.
150 feet.
All right, and normally I would go right to Carl, but I think this time I'm just gonna jump in there. It's my understanding, and I've seen the minutes of the county commission. They made their decision, at least at the committee level, and assuming that holds up throughout. Looks like Carl's gonna be done at the end of this year, and I want to say that he has been a great help for me in
keeping up to speed. He's a friendly face that I've always been able to talk to and get some understanding of what's been going on in the road commission. It's hard for me to imagine that I'm gonna be the senior commissioner on here. And I wish you would, I hoped that you would be extended beyond their arbitrary 12 years, but it's been 12 great years, and he's helped us get to where we're at on this bridge project, the crossing, and so much more we've done in this county. And those 12 years, a lot has happened. A lot. And in any event, with Kylie's help, I was able to get this made up for you. It's a sign you can have for your man cave or wall or whatever. But
Well, thank you.
nice.
Well,
For Carl.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you, Carl.
Yeah.
And
Thank you all.
we're gonna be missing you. And did you say something about some designs that we're gonna have shortly, or is that gonna be this year or next year?
We're gonna have them next week, Monday or.
Next week, Monday or Tuesday. You're still on the board till the end of the year, so if you wanna show up for that, of course, then you're still on that particular committee. So I think, and isn't that when we give them the key to the executive washroom for the facility? He is on Kingsley though. That's all I have to say.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, it's in 12 years, I think, when I came on board, and not to speak bad of the road commission, but it was somewhat in disarray. There was a lot of, the community looked down on the road commission, and I think we've changed that. Where now our staff and everybody can be proud of the organization that they are. It's a quality organization. It's attentive to the community's needs. I think we've just, when I came on board, maintenance wasn't even a word we used. We had no money for maintenance. They couldn't even do chip seals. And I think the road quality has changed a lot. We went from, like I said, doing none to vastly improving our road system. Our staffing has changed. Brad's manager number 3 that I've worked with. I think our financial director, I think it's either 3 or 4. So we
think it's 6.
Is it 6?
Actually,
Okay.
we had 3 in 3 years.
Yeah, so we went through a lot of staff, but I think that, and I made the comment earlier, and I've just touched briefly on it. I think the staff we have right now is as good as we've had. I think we've got quality people right from everywhere, front office, out in the shop, out in the field, everything. I think that, and like I said, and they're all proud of what they do. So that's, I'm happy we've made those changes, and people want to work here. We had a hard time recruiting people for a while. It was a tough go, and it's been a pleasure. And I think that, I hope that I have. I think I've done my part to make this a better county to drive in. So that's it, Carl.
Did you want to say something about the tree?
Oh, yes, and just last note, what day was it? It was Thursday, last Thursday. Last Thursday, a tree was planted at the end of Jack's Landing, and a stone,
I haven't seen it.
It's impressive. Nobody's moving it. It has a plaque on it honoring Bill Mauser.
Oh.
Yeah, the conservation people and the parks, and we went out and we dedicated the tree to Bill. He served us since 2012.
He was an asset to the community too.
2012, we put him on, but yes, he was an asset to the community, and it was Bill, and it was, these guys were our stalwarts. He got us moving forward on some pretty major projects where it was never thought we'd come back to be able to complete them. So yes, thank you for. I mean,
Bill is missed.
Yeah.
Bill's missed.
I love this humor.
His humor
It
was,
was, you had to pay attention, and if you didn't know it, you didn't realize it.
his humor was very dry and very straightforward.
Yes.
All right.
Public comment, any public comment, anything, anybody? No, we don't have to read anything.
Motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you.